just pushing the knife out with just the power of his muscles? It came out.
That was seriously gross.
You see, I am invincible!
You moron.
2000s were a hell of a time for the American anime market. The great anime boom was in full force, driven by the success of specialized television blocks like Toonami and Adult Swim, alongside more young-focused blocks on channels like Disney, Sci-Fi, and Fox. Your mom knew what Dragon Ball was. Your grandma knew about Shaman King. Your sister had an unhealthy obsession with Ultimate Muscle. The age of the cartoon was over. The time of the orc had come. Of course, success invites competition, and tons of studios, many with their own in-house translators, script writers, and voice actors, scrambled over each other to find the next big thing. The next Sailor Moon, the next Yu-Gi-Oh!, the next Gundam Wing, or, dare we say it, the next Dragon Ball Z. And so began a gold rush, and for a long time we had everything. Cyberpunk action, space body horror, magical girls, and beautiful boys. We even had Gal Gaigar. Even aside from your marquee shows, your Fullmetal Alchemists or your Narutos, you could find all manner of weird little curiosity on the anime shelves at your FYE. And it is in this world of plenty that we find today's little slice of early 2000s kitsch, Shootfighter Tekken. A 3-part OVA series initially released in Japan in 2002, Shootfighter Tekken is an adaptation of Koko Tekenden Tafu, a long-running seinen action manga that translates rather appealingly to high school exciting story, Tough. Tafu is one of those series, you know, the ones you would swear are ultra-obscure because, well, you haven't heard of it. But then you do your research and find out not only did it run for 10 years and 42 volumes in Shueisha's seinen magazine Young Jump, it even has 2 sequel series, one of which is still running to this day. Before we start, I should mention I'm getting the footage off my old Central Park Media DVDs. Yep, the good old US Manga Core. They're from 2004, and even then, they probably weren't the highest quality. All this is to say that the footage probably won't be the nicest you've ever seen, but I promise you it has a wonderful personality. The series follows Kichi Miyazawa, or Kibo as his friends call him. Kibo is your average, by the way, maybe like and share if this video does anything for you. I am a brand new channel with no traction or presence, and I can use all the help I can get. Thank you ahead of time. Anyway, Kibo is your average Japanese teen street tough. He's roughly high school age, loves a good fight, likes to hang out with his friends, is the heir to an ancient assassination art, loves exercise, is a little bit dumb, and I should probably go back to that 4th one. As it turns out, Kibo's father Otan is the current master of Nara Shinkage Ryu, or Nanshin's Shadow Style, an old and deadly martial art that specializes in lethal strikes, grapples, and pressure point related tomfoolery. It is a deadly and murderous style that is used to do murderous things deadly, and the show will make damn sure you know it.
Don't forget, Nanshin Shadow Style is a murderous martial art. Nanshin Shadow Style is life and death.
I'll show your sorry ass that Nanshin Shadow Style is unstoppable!
Nanshin Shadow Style is the ultimate murderous style.
Otan is of course training Kibo in its use. They spar, Otan stops his heart. It's all really good family bonding stuff. Unfortunately, a demon from Otan's past has come calling, and he won't take no for an answer. You see, a long time ago, Otan had a little tussle with Iron Kiba, the world's best professional wrestler. The match was horribly violent and bloody and ended with Otan plucking out Kiba's eye Kill Bill style. Even though he recovered perfectly fine, minus the eye thing, and would go on to attain immense influence and wealth in the intervening years, Kiba could never forget. Nor could he forgive. So, under threat of a never-ending stream of homicidal goons, Otan agrees to a rematch with the condition that Kiba fuck off forever if he wins. And if Kiba wins, well, he has certain ideas about how he'd like his vengeance to play out. The impending rematch between the two provides the connective tissue between the 3 episodes. Meanwhile, Kichi inevitably ends up running afoul of one of the violent lunatics Kiba sends to harangue them, eventually fighting them in a dramatic showdown at the climax of each volume. Look, this isn't War and Peace. From the very first scene, which depicts the original Otan v Kiba fight, you know exactly what you're watching, what you're getting into. While it may not be particularly groundbreaking or clever or showing you anything particularly new, the vigor, the chutzpah with which it commits to its bit makes for a fun, fast, and memorable watch. As tends to happen in series like this, Shootfighter Tekken takes place in one of those wonderful heightened realities that all action series of this ilk happen in, where sometimes it feels like everyone in Japan is at least adept at some sort of obscure combat technique, and where the highest martial arts basically cross into magic. Nanshin Shadow Style can not only stop hearts and destroy minds, but it can identify sickness and organ damage and literally heal the handicapped. Real quick, since this guy is paralyzed, that means his carers had to make the decision to pose him like some sort of garden statue before Otan arrived. I don't want to find that as entertaining as I do, but here I am, talking about it. Probably the funniest expression of this is how the series regards pro wrestlers. Now, don't mistake this for me belittling wrestlers. They work hard, they take hits, hell, wrestling is a martial art unto itself. But in Shootfighter Tekken, they talk about pro wrestlers like they're some sort of ancient monastic order. Otan even speaks as if the clearly superhuman shit some of them do is to be expected, and multiple characters make reference to their inhuman strength, endurance, and durability.
This loser had B-level talent at best, so don't get so worked up, kid.
What a grip! Can't even move!
To try to prove pro wrestling is the ultimate in martial arts, I kept fighting various martial artists from all styles. I defeated every opponent until one last challenge, a master of the deadly art, Nanshin Shadow Style. But he doesn't know the real threat of a pro wrestler.
I dropped that guy straight on his head, and he's not even phased.
A pro wrestler has power and stamina, of course, but our real threat lies in endurance for pain and recovery from it. Focus. A pro wrestler knows no pain. If his right arm is broken, then he fights with his left. If both arms are broken, then we fight with our legs. Pro wrestlers are a different breed altogether.
You need me to drop you on your head again?
Ah yes, I too learned of the great WCW army that once roamed the wastes of Oregon, led by their mighty warrior king, Bill Goldberg. We've got the wrestling Ubermensch, we got slippery, snaky judoka, we have sword-wielding street thugs, all manner of opponent for Kichi to pound into paste. Luckily, the action in Shootfighter Tekken, you know what, we're just going to call it Shootfighter from now on. Anyway, the action is pretty great more often than not. Characters move fluidly, animations can get pretty detailed and intricate, and thanks to stellar sound work and good impact effects, when someone is hit, you really feel it, especially when someone has been dropped particularly hard in some gnarly slam or submission hold. But when it's bad, it's really bad. There are entire action sequences where characters are off-model more than they're on, and some more martial arts intensive moments essentially become a series of still images. Can you count the frames in this scene? Send your answers to sweetjesuswhathappened at CompuServe.com. Still, the action hits way more often than it doesn't, and even at its worst, the action scenes look more consistently good than the show at large. Look, every artist has their own style, and I am the absolute last person in the world who would look down their nose at anyone else's art, but let's be very frank. Shootfighter is an ugly show. It's obvious that a lot of the budget and focus went to those action scenes because the animation, coloring, and model work in the rest of the series runs the gamut from perfectly fine to what I can only describe as harrowing. Even in its better moments, the series has that sort of muddy, dark quality a lot of more mid-budget anime at the time had, especially ones set in more urban environments. Truth be told, it's a visual that's almost nostalgic to me, but I doubt new watchers would be so forgiving. Now, this isn't to say the series isn't capable of some really striking images, particularly using shadow and light to great effect in some scenes, but these are islands in a rather choppy sea. The actual character designs fare a little bit better. The main characters all have distinct silhouettes, visual flares, and faces. Kichi's shock of blonde hair, Kiba's unique juxtaposition of almost grotesque upper body size and fancy dress aesthetic. Though, depending on the angle, some characters more specifically Otan, can go from muscular fighter men to Toguro brother in one frame. What's more, there are some championship animation nightmares. This one, whatever the hell is going on with this guy. No joke, it even affects the box art. Volumes 1 and 2 don't look too bad, if a little bit mannequin, but Volume 3, now that is one for the ages. Shootfighter Tekken. Only Tekken this looks like is Tekken 1. Kibo rocking that Forest Law face. Even though the actual plot is somewhat perfunctory, the characters zhuzh up things just enough to keep proceedings lively. As mentioned, Kichi is cut from a very familiar cloth. He spends most of the show screaming about one thing or another, but is also vivacious and likable enough to be the center the show needs him to be. Otan, meanwhile, is the strict but also caring sensei parent type, and the show even finds some time to glean a little comedy from certain aesthetic tastes he has. On the other end, Kichi's friends Kuro and Takako could literally be replaced by neon signs saying energetic girl and cool friend, and I swear nothing would change. Major recurs-wise, the only other one is the Man-Eater, a brick shithouse who seeks out Kichi for a good fight, but after a strong and even mildly amusing intro, he sort of fades into the same people who help Kichi train and cheer him on during his fight status most of the others do. Moving on from the heroes, Iron Kiba is a fantastic villain. Blatantly modeled after real-life wrestling and MMA legend Antonio Inoki, he's all expensive suits and barely veiled contempt, hardly even bothering to hide his near-constant threats to Kichi and his family behind a veneer of faux politeness. On the other hand, you have the journalists, who I can't even be asked to look up the names of. Greasy Bald Man and his assistant Balloon Face Woman are theoretically supposed to act as a sort of audience surrogate, introducing characters and events, and fair enough, they sometimes elucidate on certain side elements of the proceedings, but they're just such a non-issue to the plot and so infrequently appear that they feel genuinely worthless to the overall story. Most characters don't get much time to breathe, even by OVA standards, but make up for it by being so goddamn extra that they stick in your mind anyway. Professional anime smirker Shingo the Reader introduces himself eating egg yolks and harassing moths, and later graduates to using a whole helicopter to show up, taunt Kichi, and then immediately leave. Keeping on the topic of helicopters, Kiba has a personal one that he flies to an arena at one point. Only to, and I remind you, that personal or not, this is a whole-ass flying vehicle. Lift it up and hurl it several hundred yards away, as is befitting of the king of pro wrestlers who, as we all know, are God's perfect soldiers. Although maybe the series should stick to bombast and pugilism, because when it tries to be dramatic, the results can run from awkward to comedic. Perhaps realizing they needed a bit more emotional content in their stories, characters just sort of pepper in these sudden emotional moments that are usually so damn out of left field that they almost read as parody.
Ichi, if I die, what do you think you're going to do?
Otan, why such a stern face?
Two fighters will be in mid-combat, literally in the process of being choked, and will suddenly start to ruminate on their childhood tragedies, or the trauma that drives them, or their fears and their lost dreams. It's like there are 3 or more pages missing from the script each time, and something that was supposed to be built up over several scenes is just sort of dropped on our heads.
I'm sorry, Pops. You're dying, I know. Your body's tired and broken from the past fights. But you still train me. Your doctor came to me. He told me that training me could kill you.
Dad, why will you not pay attention to me? Always, whether I'm crying or laughing, he never cares. Always nursing my sick brother, while I am always out of the spotlight.
I got the results of the test back. I definitely have breast cancer.
Sound-wise, there's really not all that much to talk about, which is why I left it for near the end. Fighting sounds are meaty and thwacky, background music is pretty much exactly what you'd expect, pretty much exclusively electric guitars, except for when one of those previously mentioned emotional moments are happening. At the very least, the show is fairly well voice acted. I tend to watch the show in English, and the New York-based voice cast all perform their roles with energy, even if we do get the odd bad delivery or strange word choice.
Chief, are you sure? The Man-Eater, Yoshiki Takaishi!
You got no class. Ever listen to yourselves? Don't you think you sound dumb?
Oh, shut it, pal!
I'm not a dumb sounder!
You want to hit me with that one again, Kibo?
I'm not a dumb sounder!
Dumb sounder?
A dumb sounder!
Dumb sounder. Well, I got my Scrabble word for the week. Folks like Mark D. Rayson, the late Rachel Lillis, and Tom Wayland work with what little their roles give them, but the real meat is the main trio, with Kichi, Otan, and Kiba being played by Michael Sinter-Nicholas, Dan Green, and Sean Schemmel, respectively. Sinter-Nicholas always did a great job with hot-blooded younger characters. His work in Gao Gaigar has always been a favorite of mine. See, there was a reason I mentioned it before. I planned this shit out from the start! And he brings the same vigor to the somewhat more limited role of Kibo. Dan Green is in full deep-voiced stately form and gives Otan a straightness that works to anchor all the noise around him. Schemmel seems to be having the most fun, though, really savoring the chance to step out of his Dragon Ball clothes and just play an absolute shitheel like Kiba.
But is it okay with you, Mr. Miyazawa? If your cute little boy gets torn apart?
You'll find my son has been given ample training.
Funada!
Every word is dripping with condescension and malice, and the grumbling baritone he uses is almost unrecognizable compared to his most famous role, with only his battle shouts giving the game away. To put this in the most obtusely nerdy way possible, described solely through the dub, the show could be described as Guy Shishio and his father Yugi Moto try to fend off the vengeful machinations of a homicidal Goku. God, I need to get out more. Swinging back to music for a second, there's one insert song in the series used during a later training montage. It's appropriately fiery and vimmed up, but it's also puzzlingly short and vanishes as quickly as it shows up. And the ending theme is an appropriately high-energy ode to determination and guts, and no, there will be no gags about the somewhat silly English in the credits. See, a lesser man might take the next 10 to 15 seconds to make some sort of joke about how unfortunate it is that that string of words sounds less like being encouraged to do your best and more like you're about to poop on someone. Not here, though. Not in this house. Shootfighter Tekken is popcorn anime from a very specific moment in time and with a very narrow purpose. It's not here to enrich your soul or give you deep, ponderous thoughts about life, freedom, and love. It's about big fights, burly men, and hot-blooded cheeseball energy. It's not streaming anywhere, and the DVDs are long out of print, but still pretty cheap secondhand. And if that's too much commitment, last time I checked, all 3 parts are right here on YouTube, even if the upload is old enough to vote. Watch it on a boring afternoon, maybe with some similarly schlock-minded friends. Be done in 2 hours, and be just a little bit better, a little bit tougher from the experience.
I need to fight the strongest opponents. If God would put up a fight, I'd even throw down with the Almighty.
Did you really just say that?